Good morning. I am introducing Heather Lendway. Heather is a data scientist at 3M in the Commercial Solutions Group, where she solves commercial problems. How many different color post-it notes are coming out?
I have no idea. I don't work with post-it notes. I can tell you that we have a few hundred versions of car wrap if you want that instead. Sorry. I do have mounds of post-its at my desk.
At your desk. So that helps us today. All right, so Heather's going to talk about web scraping with R. And Heather.
All right. Thank you, Brian. All right, so we're going to start out real quickly with what is web scraping. So simply put, it's a technique used to extract data from websites. Typically, you're fetching a page, parsing content, wrangling your data, aggregating it, and then likely saving it to a database or spreadsheet for use in future analysis. And typically, this is done in an automated fashion. So a little bit about why would you want to use web scraping. First of all, it can be really helpful if you're trying to create a workable data set. A lot of data is available online on the internet, but it might not be in the greatest format to work with. So you might have tables on a web page that are pretty messy and not easy to copy and paste. You may have multiple results pages that you need to scroll through to get your data, or it could just live in sporadic locations throughout the page. Secondly, web scraping gives you the ability to schedule and automate pulling your data. So it's really easy to refresh your data for analysis. You can also use it to automate looping over different user inputs. So before we get started, a few tools you should be aware of as you start your web scraping project. First of all, before you dive into building your own tool to scrape anything, you should check out if there's a website API in existence. So here I included a link that has a pretty comprehensive list. Not everything's out there though, so it's definitely worth a Google search before you spend a lot of time building something. Secondly, if you are going to read and parse your own data, it's worthwhile to download the Chrome extension Selector Gadget. I'm not going to use that today in my example, but worth a check, especially if you're not very familiar with HTML. Secondly, you'll want to get comfortable with using developer tools in your browser. It helps you kind of dive into the HTML and the different request strings that you may need. One other thing to note is that when you are using an API or a screen scraping tool, if you're consistently hitting the same website, they may end up blocking your requests. So if you're no longer getting results, just be aware you may need to add in a sys.sleep of some period of time into our code so that they continue to accept your requests. All right, so today I'm going to use the Glassdoor website for our example. How many people are familiar with Glassdoor? Okay, well, if you're not, it's a website for searching for jobs and looking at companies. So you can go out there and look at company reviews. So in our example, our goal is to compile a data set of companies for a city. And then also we want to compile all the reviews for that company in the city. So I'm quickly going to just play a video of how you would interact with the website if you go out there manually. So you come to the company's page, hit play. Maybe. Sorry, technical difficulty. The video is not coming up. There we go. So, all right. So this is the homepage for looking at searching for cities. So you come to this page, you enter your city, and it takes you to this result page where you can see all the companies for that city. You can then click on the reviews, and it takes you to a company-specific page where they list out all the different reviews for the company. So you can see individual reviews on this page. So that was a really quick overview of kind of the data we want to gather. So the steps we need to get this data: one, we need to create a URL to get to that company result page for any city. Secondly, we need to create a URL to get to the review page for each company. Thirdly, we need to compile all of those individual review results. And then lastly, we want to put this code into a loop that will run it through all of the results. So first up, I have a video to walk through how you'll use developer tools to figure out the company result page URL. So first up, you'll open developer tools. And that pops up a console down here. You start typing the city and you notice that there's some requests coming up in the network tab. If you click on those, you can actually see the detail of the request URL that's happening in the background. I'm going to copy this URL and actually open it in another window. This is returning some JSON, so keep this at the back of your mind for now. Going back here, I'm going to clear the network tab, and then I'm going to hit search. So here you can see there's a lot of network requests happening as we go to this page, but I'm actually going to go down in the corner here and scroll back up to the top, and you can see the first request that was made to get to this page. And if you click on that, you see the original URL to get to this page. And then if you scroll down here, you can actually see the query string parameters that were included with that URL. So that was probably a little fast, but we're going to walk through that slower now. So we're trying to create that URL to get the company results for any city. So here at the top of my screen, you can see that URL that we saw on the last page. So on this result page, we scrolled up and we clicked the top request, and we saw this URL, which is up here. And then we scrolled down to see the detail of the query string parameters. So you can see that it's providing this loc T, C, and loc ID. And this is specific to St. Paul. So remember, we want to be able to pass in any city. So somehow we have to get that loc T and loc ID. So backing up to that JSON we saw earlier, recall as we went to this page, we went to the network tab, we started typing in St. Paul, and we saw these requests happening kind of behind the scenes. When we clicked this request, there was this URL that took us to some JSON. So now if we look a little bit closer at that JSON, you can see that in this URL, it's passing in a term where it's placing the city. When we go to this URL, you can actually see in the JSON, it's returning this location ID and location type, which map back to that loc T and loc ID from our original request. So now we're going to put all of that code together. So given a city, so here we have St. Paul, we're assigning that to location. We're then pasting that location into this URL that got us the JSON. We then use JSONLite from JSON to read that URL. That returns this document. So here it creates a nice data table for us, and you can see that location ID is a column and location type is a column. So we can then use this data to pass into our result page URL. So here is our result page URL. We're going to place the location type we got from our JSON, and we'll also place the location ID that we got from our JSON. And down below here, you can see the full URL that we've now created. Next up, you would use read HTML with that URL, and that will return all of the HTML for that page you just read in. So this is the HTML for that company result page. I'm going to gloss over this section of code here, but this is the code to get all of the result pages. So I'm not sure if you noticed that at the bottom, there's actually a scrolling list. So each result page only has 10 companies on it, but if you wanted to loop through and pull the data for all companies, you just have to create the list of all those different pages. And this is kind of the code that runs through creating that list. All right, next up, second step is to create a URL to get to the review page for each company. So again, I have a short video to walk through this, and it's going to show you how we use developer tools to get at the link. So here, I'm actually going to switch to the Elements tab and use the selector. As you mouse over the page, it will highlight different components of the page, and then below, it's actually pulling up the corresponding HTML. As you mouse over the HTML, it highlights the section on the page. So here I've highlighted the review section, and you can see the href that I need to get to the review page. So I'm clicking on it, and at the top, you can see that is the URL that we want to get for all of the review pages. So before we break that down, I'm going to do a little review with how you parse HTML using RVest. So the first set of functions I want to review is using HTML node, which will pull the first node that meets the criteria you've given it. And then secondly, you can use HTML nodes, which will pull the entire node set that meets your criteria. In the first set of examples, we're going to use CSS selectors. So that's the class name or tag name in your HTML. So say we want to pull this entire div. We can use HTML node dot emp links. So that's using the class name on the div. So here you have the class name emp links. And you always, when you're referencing a class, you put a dot in front of it. So when I run this code, you can see the output below returns that div. In our next example, say you want to pull all three of these A tags. Again, we're using HTML nodes, but this time we're just calling A. So when you want to call things by just the tag name, you enter the tag name in quotes. So here are these three A tags into the nodes, and when you run this code, you can see you get those three A tags as the result. Next up, say we just want to grab one of those A tags. You can use the command nth child. So here we're looking for an A tag that's the 7th child of the node it's in. So this is the 7th node, and it's an A tag. So then when you run this code, it's going to return just that one A tag. A few more examples. So say you want to pull this review A tag. You can also use tag name dot class name. So here we have the A tag dot reviews, which will pull this specific tag only. So you can see the result here. We get that one node. All right, so now say we want to pull the same node. There's actually multiple ways you can pull this. So you can also use the A tag dot class name. And then if you want to reference multiple class names, you can keep adding dot class name to the end. So if you happen to have a bunch of nodes with the similar names and you have to get a very specific one, this is how you can do that. And again, you see it returns the exact same node. All right, last example. So here, say we want to get these two A nodes. We can actually use a comma to separate two different classes. So you know you want to pull the A tag class name review and the A tag with class name salary. You can use dot review and dot salaries, and then you can get those two very specific nodes. All right, a few more functions to go over. So actually, this one is still using HTML nodes, but you do have an option to use the XPath instead of the CSS selectors. So if you want to use the XPath, you can go out to Developer Tools. If you right-click the HTML node you want, you can hover over Copy and then select Copy XPath. That will return this funny looking string for you. And then when you call HTML nodes with that XPath, it will return that very specific node you are looking for. So this is helpful if you're not super familiar with CSS or HTML, or if you want a very specific node. All right, our last two functions. So we have HTML attribute. So this is to actually grab an attribute value of a node. So say in this instance, we want to get this href value. We can use pull the marge x and then pull all the A nodes, and then we pull the href attribute, and you can see that returns that href value. Next up, we have HTML text. So that actually returns the value of the tag. So here is the text value of our A tag is target. So if we want to use that, we can pull the marge node, the A node, and then we call HTML text. And that actually will return the string target for us. All right, so back to our example, we want to create the URL for our review page. So here we're trying to get the value for the href. So we pull the emp links nodes, then we pull the review nodes, and then we pull the HTML attribute href. We then see the result looks like this. So it's not our full URL. So here I'm just mutating those URLs, adding the full URL, and then here you can see we end up with the full URL. All right, next up, third step. So now we have our result page and we have a review page. Now we need to loop through each review page. So this is just a quick sample loop of how you would loop through the review page, read each review page. And then we want to get all the information on the review page. So the first thing we want to get on each review page is the company name. So here we can pull the node that corresponds to this H1 strong. Then we want to get the attribute data company. And if we pull that, it's going to return target for us. Next up, we have all of those reviews on each page. So now we have to get all of the review nodes and loop through the content within each review node. So here's a sample of kind of the loop you would run through. So here you can see this div is hreview, and it's highlighted this review for us nicely on the page. So you'll pull that, and then you're going to loop through each of those nodes and pull the information out of the review. So we'll walk through a few examples of pulling the different review node information. So first up, say we want to pull the time. So here we're grabbing the time tag, and then we're saying dot date subtle small class, and then we're grabbing the date time attribute, and that would return Saturday, August 10th, so on for us. Next up, say we want to grab the review title. Here we grab the span node with class of summary, and then we get the value of the text. So that would return good at first. All right, so we've walked through the three main steps to get each data piece. Now we need to loop through that for every company, every review page, and every individual review. So this is kind of the outer loops that you would use to pull all of the data at one time. So the first loop, we're looping through the result pages. So if you recall, we have links like this, which take us to the page listing all of those different companies. So that's this page. We then read each of those pages, and we want to look for all of the company review URLs. That looks like this. Remember that page is this company focused page. We then, on each review page, need to run through each of the company review nodes. So that's these. And then in this loop, we have all of the code to pull the different variables in that review node. So that's that and that. All right, and this is just kind of showing, scrolling through all of the code put together, and this code file is available on the NorthConf Git site. One thing I will note, at the end here, you do see I have all these print lines. I do like to include that, so as I'm starting and debugging, usually it fails a few times. Easy to pick out where your code failed. And then this is actually looking at the results table that we get after running all of this code. So you can see there's 10 reviews for each company. The majority of the data is filled in, but not every item is filled in for every review, so you will see some blanks. So you've created a pretty nice data set here with 1,000 rows. I ran that for 10 result pages, so you could definitely run it for 20 or more and get a larger data set. So here, if that's not challenging for you, you can definitely take my code and try and convert it to PER to use that instead of loops. I currently only pull the first 10 review results because you actually need to authenticate Glassdoor to see more than 10 reviews. So if you want to work on authentication with your request, that would be a good challenge. And then I didn't pull out the stars from the reviews, so you could definitely work on that as well. And this is a video of Charlie trying to open a door, so that's her challenge. So as I mentioned, the slides and code are available on the North Git site. And then I do have another example of web scraping using the A to Z lyrics website. That site I did get banned from, so I had to, in the end, add some code. I think it took them a week to let me hit their site again. So there's an example of adding a sysleep in there as well. So that is all. Thank you.
We have time for questions. We have dedicated over to content table.
But then write some code and come back a month later. That's for like trying to future proof for your code. Like I guess the way that you select elements and stuff to try to select them in a way that robust to changes like that.
Yeah, I think in that instance, I want to say it would be better to try and use tag names more than class names, because if they're going to update the look and feel of their website, a lot of times the classes are probably going to change. But it could change the tag names as well. So I think it is challenging. And actually, like when I did this, I wrote this code a long time ago, and then I was like, oh, why am I not getting any results anymore? So they've obviously gone back and changed some of that. So it is harder to code for that. But you might get lucky if you use the tag names. A lot of times they're just applying a new style, and that would apply a new class. It might not necessarily change the layout, but that might be your best bet.
If you do get blocked, just set up a couple of EC2 instances in Amazon and get what you need before they catch you. We actually did video AC lyrics and grabbed all the lyrics to my son's favorite bands. So, yeah.
I'm curious about being a respectful of websites and not just kind of killing them while you're scraping. Do you have any recommendations for that?
I do think, you know, if you want to be respectful, you can definitely add this please. I don't know that there's anything else you could do. Brian, I don't know if you have thoughts on that, but
I think it really depends on what you're getting. I think that if you're dumping the entire website, that's bad. But you know, again, from my experience, if you're grabbing 3 or 4 items, that's not really that much traffic. So, but you do have your point. I mean, you don't want to, much like Heather, I was doing some things with a website called Doximity, and I was able to get 3 or 4 days before they blocked every web address, I think, in my zip code. So, it's just a good question. I don't have an answer for you. Performance-wise, I don't really think it's that bad. Especially some of the bigger sites that should, and again, turning it around, should be ready to handle that kind of traffic. And you're one person getting information. But on the other hand, if they're not ready to that kind of action, I don't want to say, I was going to say action, it's, you know.
I will mention, I guess, pending the use of the data you're calling as well, you should read some of the legal notices on the web page, because there is some wording in there occasionally that says web scraping of this site is not allowed. So if you're doing this for your corporation, it's probably not legal according to your lawyers. So just something to look at before you share all that lovely data piece.
I just wanted to say there recently there was a package that came out called Polite, and Polite allows you to sort of send a message to the website indicating that you're interested in trading it. It also allows you to input whatever the rate of the price that the entire point of it is the goal of Polite is to promote and fund the web packet, and that's our package. And it has much of this functionality, but I think it has a few more interactions with the service. I
was going to mention too, I had a question at my table earlier. We were just chatting with someone and they asked about authentication. You can authenticate websites from JSON. You can add a token to your URL that you're passing, and then with read HTML, you can provide like username and password colon your URL or something like that. You can easily find that information online, but there are methods to authenticate if you need to.
Yeah.
Lisa?
Hi. Great work, by the way. I'm just wondering if you have any tips for teaching students how to do that.
I can come to your class, Lisa.
Awesome.
That's a good question. I'm not sure I have the best answer. I really think you just kind of have to start with something simple and kind of play with it yourself, because if you're not familiar with HTML, that's definitely a hurdle in itself. Developer tools is very helpful to kind of get you slowly into HTML. So probably start with something very basic, like can you grab the website image or Don't start with my example.
Okay, thank you, Heather.
Thank you.